أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال نسوة في المدينة امرأة العزيز تراود فتاها عن نفسه قد شغفها حبا إنا لنراها في ضلال مبين, and said the women in the city, which means the talks has started happening. The talks started happening in the city about the incident that has taken place inside the house of Aziz. I mean, the act of or the attempt to seduce Yusuf al-Islam. That's what here Allah also says, that the talk has happened inside the city, that women have started talking about this. And the wife, the talk goes like this: the wife of the Aziz is seeking to seduce her slave boy, who is Yusuf al-Islam, about himself. Verily, and the information the doctors goes something like this, where he has impassioned her, shagafaha, which means made her mad, and impassioned or made her mad with love. And verily, and people agree that there is no mistake from Yusuf alayhi salam's end, but it is a mistake that lady, I mean the wife of Aziz, who is trying to seduce Yusuf alayhi salam. Verily, we surely see her in error clear. When this talk was going around, this lady, the wife of Aziz, wants to do something to convince her love or convince her activity. So what she did is, so when she heard of this scheming, of this hue and cry that is taking place inside the city, then because she is a rich lady, she arranged for a banquet. She sent for them. I mean, here you see again Hinna is coming, which means it is exclusively females. There is not even a single male. That's why it is Hinna instead of Hin. So, and she prepared for everybody, and she invited the big stalwarts of that town, the rich ones of the town, who were doing such a discussion about wife of Aziz. She invited everybody for a banquet, for a dining, and she gave each one of them a knife. And after that, instead of cutting the fruits, after that, she said to Yusuf alayhi salam to come out before them. And when they saw him, I mean these ladies who were on the banquet with knife in their hands, when they saw him, I mean when they saw Yusuf alayhi salam, they greatly admired him because of the handsomeness and the beauty that was really impressed everybody. They greatly admired him, and instead of cutting the fruits, they cut their own hands. That's such as the charming nature of the handsomeness nature of Yusuf alayhi salam, and they cut their own hands. They said, Hasha lillah, forbid Allah, not this is he is a man. We don't see him as a man. Instead, not this is except an angel. He looks like an angel. Such a charming young chap of 20 years old, but an angel who is noble. And this activity she did so that she wants to ensure that she is not making any mistake. And further, she wants to convince them of his beauty and of the youth. And he urged, and that had urged her to fall in love with him. And further, there was nothing uncommon. And further, she wants to practically demonstrate before them that anybody else who is in her situation will do the same act of same immoral act, which is the arrogance to the core. This is exactly what Shaitan also did. Doing sin is one thing, but convincing And giving justification for doing a sin is the arrogance. That is what the shaitan has experienced. The same attitude here, this lady also shows the people around. And now she says, now she confessed. See the immoral nature that was prevailing in the civilization of Egypt, where people have become so immoral that she said that the one you blamed me about him, this is the person, madam. This is the person regarding to him, to whom you have blamed me. And certainly, yeah, I confess now. She is openly declaring. See the grave attitude of her, and she openly say that I sought to seduce him. Yes, yes, I did. Yes, I did. From himself, but he has saved himself. She also declares that the mistake has not happened, the immoral act has not happened, and further, she confessed that he has escaped a time. One time he got escaped from me, but if he is not going to follow my instruction of obeying me to do an immoral act. Is see the vulgar nature of that lady, where she says that, and if he does not, if he does not do what I order him, then there is no other option for him except to be imprisoned. And surely he will be imprisoned, or surely he will become among those who disgraced. And this is the warning letter that she gives the people. And and just understand the psychological trauma that Yusuf alayhi salam would have been undergoing at this point in time, and a young chap of 20, and who has now come out of a desert into an Egypt with a forced slavery and exile. Somehow the fortune has given him a place in the highest dignitaries in the capital city, but his handsome nature has drawn the attention of the lady. And not only that, his fame has now spread all over the capital. The other ladies of the town are also enamoring him, chasing him like anything. It's a critical situation. He is now surrounded with hundreds of chances to trap him to get into an immoral act. And there is no other choice except left for him either to do the immoral act or to get into prison. Now the decision that he takes now, we'll just see it in the next ayah. He says, now we see the Yusuf alayhi salam's the highest, showing the highest level of modesty and piousness, that he says, he said, Rabbi, my Lord, the prison is more best for me, more dearer for me than to what they are inviting to me to do. So it is better for me to go to prison than to do the immoral act they are calling for. Except, and further he says that I am weak. There's hundreds of people who are piling up and forcing him to seduce him to do an immoral act. He says that if not, you are going to turn away from me. Their plot. Again, hunna, so which means the plot of the ladies. Definitely, and he expresses his weak nature as a human being. He says that I might incline towards them and become among the ignorant, which means ignorants are the ones who will do sin. And the intelligent people will keep away from doing sin. And this is what he decides to choose, to go for prison than to live in the city where day in and day out he has to face the seduce from the ladies around. And now his fame has got around, and throughout the city wherever he goes, and people bang on him to misuse him. And this is the extreme level of honesty and fidelity that he shows, and the decision that he has taken. Now Allah responds. So responded to him his Lord. So turned away from him their plot. Verily, he is all hearer and all knower, and he is in prison. Somebody else goes now to Yusuf alayhi salam and asks, is this a successful life? Then you have to wait for a moment to understand what Allah reveals for him. What is the plan of Allah behind this. Now, then appeared to them after what they had seen, the signs, after seeing the investigation, the people around and the authorities of the Egypt had no other choice except imprison him because they could not have control on their own ladies. This imprisonment of innocent people, which happens even today, this is an age-old fashion. Because in order to keep away from the wicked people, there is always innocent people are put into trial and put behind the bars. That has happened here, where the authorities decides to imprison him until for a while. And now he goes to prison. He goes to prison now and entered with him in the prison two young men. These two young men are none but the one is the chief butler of the king of the Egypt, and the other one is the chief baker. Both were arrested because of the mistake that they did in the kitchen. And now these two young men said one of them, these two young men were noticing Yusuf alayhi salam for a while inside the prison. His noble attitude and the character has really melted them. And they now come to Yusuf alayhi salam and says, verily I see myself pressing a wine, which means he has seen a dream. And he is now coming and narrating to Yusuf alayhi salam to explain what is this dream is all about. And he said, the other person said, even I had a dream that verily I see myself carrying over my head a bread and we're eating the birds from it. So both of us have seen a dream. So I want you to inform us of its interpretation. We see you as a noble person. That's what they say. Verily, we see you of the good doer. You look like a good person, a good doer. So we just want to understand what is the interpretation of this dream. This is a unique attitude. This is a unique intelligence that Allah has given to Yusuf alayhi salam to interpret the the dream. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the dreams is also a type of wahi, and that is the left out traces of the wahi in the earth. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. So now he said, not will come both of you its interpretation. He said, not will come to you both of you the food you are provided with, but I will inform both of you of its interpretation. Before your lunch reaches, I can give its interpretation before that comes to you. But I have something more serious topic to discuss with you. And now he says, that is what has taught me my Lord. And this is an art and skill that Allah has taught me, my Lord has taught me. Verily, and now, this is the very first time that Yusuf alayhi salam started doing the propagation, the message of Islam, even inside the prison. And he says that, verily, I abandon the religion of the people who do not believe in Allah and they in the hereafter, they are the disbelievers. And further, he is now revealing his identity for the very first time. And though he was facing a lot of critical situation before, but he didn't reveal his identity or his family background. But here he utilizes that to convince people about Islam and to convince these prisoners about Islam. And he says, I follow the religion, the millet, the creed or the religion of my forefathers. I'm proud of them. It is Ibrahim alayhi salam, Ishaq alayhi salam, and my own father Yaqub alayhi salam. And he is telling these names because that their names was so popular in the city. At his time, their names got so familiar and so popular that people could understand and figure out whom they are. and they were the popular. And not was for us that because of the lineage that I have born with, we will not associate partners with Allah of anything. That is from the grace of Allah that He has bestowed upon us and upon the mankind. And but most of the people who does not, who are not really grateful or thankful for the favor that Allah has given. So He has utilizes this opportunity to do dawah to the people. So now He is asking, after explaining about the fulcrum message about Islam, is now asking rising questions. This is how an interfaith dialogue should happen. And he is putting forth a syntax of that. And he says, "O my two companions, the prisoners, do you think all the lords separate, muftara, or the individual gods, lords for every, for example, Lord for the heaven, the Lord for the earth, Lord for the sky, Lord for the rain, and Lord for the good, Lord for the bad, Lord for the death, Lord for the birth. That is better. Having separate lords for every activity is better, or the only one Allah is better, and who is irresistible, who is one and irresistible, which means nobody can compel him and he can do things on his own. Nobody can have a check on him." And further, he raises this question, and further he says, "Not you worship from besides him except the names." People who are worshipping besides Allah are just the names which they have named on their own. There is no authority, there is no proper reasoning or proof for doing it, which you have named them, which means the names that you have fabricated on its own, based on the languages, based on the land, and you and your forefathers have named it. Not has sent down Allah offered any authority, and not as the command except for Allah only. He has commanded that not to worship except besides Him. That is the religion right, Deenul Qayyim, the religion right, and but most of the men do not know. After explaining everything about Islam, now he gives the solution for the problem that they are faced or the inquiry that they are faced. So we can take a sincere lesson, like we can take 3 lessons from this incident. One is, this is the very first occasion that he is declaring he started preaching the true faith of Islam. And second, this is an occasion where he has revealed his identity of his lineage, family lineage to the people around. Even he didn't use it during the critical situation of blaming him, or where the attempts were made to seduce him. Even at that critical situation, he didn't use it. And third, he used a nice chance to propagate for the message of Islam if the one has an intention to learn about it. And further, now he explains the interpretation of that dream. He says, "O my companions, O my two companions, Ya Sahibiya, citizen of the prisoners, as far as the one who he will give drink his master the wine, which means he will be, and as far as the other, which means he will be released and he will get a greater position in near his master, which means he will get the old job that he was doing. And as far as the other, where he will be crucified and he will be subjected to the punishment and will eat the birds from his head, which means he will die. And he has decreed the matter about which you both were inquiring, and this is the result of the interpretation of the interpretation of the dream that you have seen." And he said to the one whom he thought that he would be saved, both of them. And he said, now Yusuf alayhi salam uses this opportunity and says, and sends out a message to the person who will be released sooner. He said, "Kindly go and mention about me to your master." This master is nothing but the king of Egypt. You are anyhow going to the Egyptian palace to resume your job. So please convey about me, about my name to your master, which means the king, so that he can inquire and release me soon. But as usual, Shaitan came into play, but made him to forget. The person who got released now has forgotten this, and whenever it is forgetting, it is related to Shaitan's play. That's what we can infer from this, and made him forget the Shaitan. That's why Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam always say that when you forget something, you have to say Auzubillah, the Shaitan is in, and mention. He has forget to mention about him to his master. So he remained in the present for several years. And Mufassirin says as much as like 10 years. His young age, between 20 to 30, has gone inside the prison itself without doing any fault of his. And now Allah opens up an opportunity for Yusuf alayhi salam to come out. What is that? Let's see. And said, the king had a dream now. And said a king, verily I have seen that 7 fat cows eating them 7 lean ones. So this is a dream that I have seen, that 7 fat cows were eaten by 7 lean cows, or lean of ears of green, and others were dry. And now he is explaining this dream and said, "Oh my chiefs," to his associates, he explains this. He tells his dream and says, "Explain it to me about my vision. If you can interpret the vision, which means the dream." Now they said, the chiefs around them, the intellectuals who were advising the king, said, "We are confused of this dream. We could not understand what it is all about, and not we can do the interpretation of the dreams, except only a learned person can do, and we are not so entitled to do it." But said, the one who was saved of the two, the person who was imprisoned, who got released, who got a job in the palace, he now uses this opportunity and says that I could remember a person. He says, and remembered after a very long time, that I will inform you of its interpretation. So send me forth. So please send me to the prison. I have a guy over there who can give an interpretation of this. And he is now coming back to Yusuf alayhi salam. O Yusuf, ayyuha siddiqu, O truthful one, explain it to us about this person. Comes back to the prison, talks to Yusuf alayhi salam, and says that explain it to us about the 7 cows which are fat, eating them, the 7 lean ones. This is one part of it. And 7 ears of corn, which is green, and others were dry. So that I may return it to my people, so that they may know what is its interpretation. And now she said, Yusuf alayhi salam, who is an expert in this field, could instantly reply to him and said that you will sow for 7 years, which means you will have a good harvest and cultivation for 7 years. It will be fertile and it will be conducive for you to do 7 years as usual, that which you can reap. So leave it in its years, except a little from which you will eat. So save majority of it and eat just a little portion of it, because then will come after that a 7 years of hard, which means there will not be no cultivation, there is no rain, or drought and famine is possible. So will consume what you have advanced before it, which whatever that you have saved in the first 7 years, that you should use it to spend it for the next 7 years. So this is a crisis that is going to hit the Egypt. So this is a financial crisis, or the management crisis, operational crisis, that is going to hit the Egypt. What you have advanced for them, except for a little of what you stored. So this is the interpretation of the hadith. So now, then will come after that an year. There you will have an abundant rain for its people, and in that you can press, which means you can start the cultivation after the 7 years. So after 14 years from now. So this is a smart advice that he is giving. And this is a financial crisis that Egypt is going to do, where they have to save for 7 years and then utilize the saved crops for the next 7 years. It's a big barbaric project to do. And he is now a king, is looking for somebody to take up this job of coordinating. So the king advised, please bring him. Please bring him to me so that I can take his expert advice, and then we'll see how to fine tune this idea. So bring him to me. But when came to him, the messenger, he said, return to your Lord. He said, Yusuf alayhi salam smartly acts on this and says, and without becoming excited, he said, I am not prepared to come. I am not prepared to come to your Lord, which means here the Lord refers to the king. Please ask him. I just want to, before taking up anything, any job of this nature, I just want to ensure that I am coming out with error-free, without anything, any complaint on it. So please go and ask your king to investigate the case of mine. The case of mine is the case where the woman who cut their hands. Verily, my Lord, about their plot is all known, and Allah is aware of their plot, what has happened. And now, your king interferes in this matter and starts his investigation. He said, what is your affair? When you sought to seduce Yusuf alayhi salam from himself, and the ladies were called upon, the wife of Aziz were also placed, they said, you see, kulna, you see, which means it is feminine gender. So it is full of ladies who are talking now. So kulna, they said, Hasha lillah, forbid Allah, not we know about him any evil. He didn't do anything. There is no blame or crime on him. He didn't do any evil. She confesses her mistake and said, the wife of Aziz now has manifest the truth, and I has sought to seduce him, and she openly declares before the king, and verily he is of the truthful person. And now Allah concludes this point and says, and that is, he may know that I may not betray him in secret, and that Allah does not guide the plan of the betrayers. With that, we can wind up for the day, inshallah. We will start the Juz 13 tomorrow, and I want you people to start